Welcome to the WPL Book Drop Podcast. I'm your host, Becky Miller, Circulation and Marketing Assistant at Waterloo Public Library. Joining us today is the crazy man in the pink wig, Mike Finley. Mike is from Jamaica, Iowa. In his previous life, that is his job, he was a military police dog handler. Mike was at the Berlin Wall in Germany, signing his name on it 3 weeks before it all came crashing down. Wow, you really had an effect.
Yes, I did.
Welcome, Mike.
Thank you.
Okay, so you were a military police dog handler. Can you tell me a little bit about that experience? What was that like?
It was lovely. I got to work with police dogs, attack trained. They got to bite me on occasion, as part of the training goes. But basically, you learn how to work with a police dog that's trained to attack as well as search for drugs. So my dogs were dual qualified to be drug-seeking dogs as well as patrol dogs.
That's really cool. So did they find drugs?
Yes, they did. They found drugs on occasion. They found bad guys on occasion. Primarily, though, they served as a deterrent. Many times when there was a big disturbance, it just took us to roll up on the scene with the dog, and most people tend to just take a step down from there because they don't want to deal with the dog.
Yeah, it's quite a bite. You don't want to get that.
It's the kind of response that most people don't want to deal with, and that's fine. If we can deter an issue rather than escalate it, that's exactly what we want to do.
Yeah, that's good. So the dogs that you had, were they yours or did they stay with somebody else?
They were military issue. They actually belonged to the military. They lived in kennels, large kennels, and we were responsible for taking care of them. And they definitely were ours in the sense that one dog to one handler, but everybody collectively took care of maybe 10 to 20 dogs per kennel.
Wow, that's a lot of dogs. Where was this?
Well, I was a dog handler all over the world, so Germany for many years, as well as Fort Sill, Oklahoma, and Fort Rucker, Alabama, primarily.
Wow. And then you said you were in Germany for the Berlin Wall. I mean, were you there when it collapsed? Or it came down, that is?
Yeah, I sure was. Basically, when that happened, you saw thousands and thousands of East Germans just flow across the border. And the amount of excitement and awe that you saw from these people was amazing. And I got to experience that. You'd be driving down the Autobahn, and they would wave at you because they had identified the American vehicles. And I'd wave back, not quite sure who I was waving to, but it was an exciting time. And I really, at that point, saw what it was like for someone to experience true freedom for the first time.
Wow, that's incredible, and especially relevant with world events happening today. So I just wanted to bring up, this is your first time joining the podcast. Can you tell us a little bit about you? Why do you call yourself the crazy man in the pink wig? I don't see a wig today.
Well, I would say, first of all, it's a metaphorical example. I'm always wearing the pink wig. But for me, I grew up in Iowa, small town called Jamaica, Iowa. And I joined the military out of high school, not really sure what I wanted to do with my life. And as I went through my military career, I started to handle money like everybody else does, except at some point I decided I needed to learn more. And I read my first financial book, and I realized I was doing almost everything wrong. And that was an eye-opening experience. I took the time to start to really educate myself on the world of money, and I started to take action with what I learned. And step by step, I changed not just my financial picture, but my life through that metamorphosis, if you will. And I realized at that point that most people were in the same boat. They were dealing with money, but they really didn't know exactly what they were doing with it. And that included their investments and planning for retirement, all these very important issues. So at the ripe old age of 25, I started helping people with money, helping them make better decisions with their money. And well, that was 33 years ago. And that brought me here today, where I've written 4 books on the matter. I try to help as many people as possible, either in person or through Zoom, throughout the United States of America. I help some people overseas in Canada and Europe. And the whole concept behind the Crazy Man in the Pink Wig is to help people see that maybe you're going to have to think and behave differently if you don't want to be part of the crowd. Because sadly in America, the crowd is broke. The crowd is living paycheck to paycheck, just barely getting by. And at a relatively young age, I realized that's not what I wanted for my life. And I try to help people see that they can change that dynamic. It may not be easy. Some people may call you weird or strange or crazy, but that might mean that you're on the right path, which is your path. So the image of the pink wig is simply to show people that you can do this, and even if you stick out from the crowd, keep doing it. Keep doing what is right for you, and be just as crazy as I am.
I love that. It's really about empowerment.
It is. It's about self-empowerment. It's about understanding that you can take control of your money as you take control of your life. And I've experienced that, so I try to help as many people as possible experience it as well, especially at a young age. The value of getting this education when you're 16, 18, 20 years old, there's no price you can put on that, because that's a lifetime that you can use this information to really make the best decisions for you and your loved ones.
Well, the reason that we have you on the podcast today is you're going to be presenting at the library an investment series beginning in April. Can you tell our listeners what you're planning?
You bet. So it starts on April 6th at 5:30, which is on Wednesday nights. It runs for 8 weeks, so every Wednesday for 8 weeks. And it goes through the whole gamut of how to become that wise and efficient investor. I try to provide education from an independent source, meaning there's nothing being sold, there's no sales pitch, I don't sell products. Actually, I warn people about the financial services industry, because much of that industry is really just full of salespeople trying to grab a hold of your money. My goal is to help people invest wisely at the lowest possible cost so they can learn how to keep most of their returns. And it takes some time, takes some effort, but I try to help them see the path to becoming a successful investor and ultimately reach financial freedom.
Yeah, that's great. I remember watching a program, I think it was on PBS, and they were talking about expense ratios and what those were. And so I dug a little bit into that. And once I learned that's basically a fee, and the bigger that is on your statement, you think like, oh, what's 1%? That's not much. But really, over time, compounded, you're losing thousands, maybe even hundreds of thousands of dollars. So yeah, this is great information that everybody needs to know, because it's one of the things, at least in America, you go through high school and you don't get this type of education. You open that financial statement and you don't know what you're looking at. So this is great information. Can you recommend some books on investing that might be good for our listeners to know about?
You bet. So outside of my books, All About Asset Allocation by Ferri is a very good book. All About Asset Allocation. And again, he used to be a broker on Wall Street, and he realized that Wall Street was more about Wall Street than helping the investor. So he separated himself from that, and he's a really good voice to learn from. And then John Bogle. John Bogle has done more for the average investor than any human being alive. So the Little Book of Common Sense Investing is a wonderful book that people can take and learn from. And per your comments, The Retirement Gamble, which is on YouTube, it's a PBS documentary, free of charge, you can watch it. It gives you insight into how the industry works and how you can do better.
Next time on Frontline, If you have a 401k or an IRA that you're depending on to retire, don't miss this report.
A lot of 401k programs stink.
You put up 100% of the capital, you take 100% of the risk, and you get 30% of the return.
From Wall Street's perspective, 401ks are a fantastic business.
This whole thing's a scam and people are really getting hurt.
Frontline investigates
I'll be working for the rest of my life.
the retirement gamble.
I think that might be the show. Because I feel like, was Bogle on there? I don't know, maybe. It was a good show, though. Well, and if you want to go ahead and plug some of your books, you can do that.
Sure. So I wrote my books really for the average person to get started and make good decisions. They're not complicated. I try to simplify matters. I provide glossaries in the back of each book that helps define the language of money, because there really is a language to this money issue, and the more you learn, the more you understand, the more it can make more sense. So the first book I wrote was Financial Happiness. And it's almost a path, as I describe, of how to get yourself in the right place financially so you can bring more true happiness into your life. That doesn't mean money is going to make you happy. What it does mean is that if you build a good foundation of good financial habits, you can reach a level of financial freedom. And then when you incorporate this idea of unconditional giving, it can take you to that pinnacle where I call financial happiness. So that's what that first book is about. It's kind of all things money, and it helps the individual start to see the path toward really achieving something much better for their life. My second book is called What Color's the Sky? And that book is created to help the average person become a much better investor. And that's pretty much what this 8-week series here at the library will cover. And it goes through this idea of understanding your fees, understanding your asset allocation, understanding your emotions, all these issues that play an important part in becoming a better investor. My third book is called Graduation, and that's a book on retirement. I don't really like the idea of retirement. It has a kind of a thought that you might retire and do nothing. I prefer graduation. You graduate to the next best phase of your life. So Graduation is a book on how to retire, whether you're retiring in your 40s like I did, or maybe your 50s or 60s, who knows, maybe in your 30s, if that's what you want. But of course, it's graduating to something else that you want to do. And that may still be work, maybe part-time work, maybe something else, maybe a world traveler. But it helps the individual understand how to do it. And then the fourth book is called Now What? It's kind of a book that I realized I could have written years ago. And that was a book for that high school and college graduate, heading out into the world, understanding what to do and what not to do when it comes to your finances. So it's a point-by-point, step-by-step manual on getting your financial house in order.
This is great information. I think that everyone needs to know. You talk about investing, and it sounds scary, like, who am I? I'm not an investor. But actually, everybody does need to be an investor if you want to have options and you want to graduate, if you will. So this is great information. Again, when does the program start at the library?
It starts April 6th, which is a Wednesday, at 5:30, runs from 5:30 to 7 in the main conference room here at the Waterloo Library.
Okay, sounds great. Mike, thank you so much for joining us today on the WPL Book Drop Podcast. It's really been a pleasure.
Thank you.
If you like today's podcast, please leave a rating and subscribe. Thank you.